social distancing.
No, Scott misunderstood. He said that I could legislate my own.
How are you doing?
Okay.
Not much going. No, I didn't. You better do a whole extra.
My comment. To mute him? Is that what you're saying? That's awesome.
That sounded like, yeah, that's Gerald. Yeah. Boy, oh boy. Can you do this remotely all the time?
I heard him dropping the ice.
Wow. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Legislature to order. First, if we would stand for the pledge and then just do a moment of silence, please. And then just a moment of reflection, and please keep in mind the people who are sick. Thank you. I should add to that the caregivers too. We're definitely doing their yeoman's work out there. Okay, roll call of members.
Legislator McBride?
Here.
Thank you. Nebewanik?
Here.
Maxon?
Here.
Monticelli?
Here.
Reed?
Here.
Ferris?
Here.
Fitzpatrick?
Here.
Thank you. Cantwell?
Here.
Doldo? Johnson?
Here.
Thank you. Drake?
Here.
Peck? Grant? Gerald?
Here.
Wonderful. Gray?
Here.
All members present, kind of.
Great. One way or the other. We'll dispense with all the other orders of business in the meeting, and we'll go right to local laws, resolutions, and motions. And we have resolution number 93.
Resolution number 93 is authorizing emergency leave for Jefferson County employees due to the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic.
May I have a motion, please? Mr. Ferris, second, Mr. Maxon. Discussion. None? Anybody on the phone have any discussion?
No. Good to
None?
go.
Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
roll call vote.
Chairman, do you want
roll,
to?
roll
yeah,
call
just
vote,
so we know.
please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Legislator Gerald?
Yes.
Put your drink down.
Monticelli?
Yes.
Maxon?
Yes.
Cantwell?
Yes.
Ferris?
Yes.
Drake? McBride?
Yes.
Peck? Doldo? Grant? Nebewanik? Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. And I assume you did put out the revised copy, or you emailed it, I'm sorry. Okay. Alrighty. Is there any questions, comments? There's anything? We have Ginger Hall with us from Public Health. Obviously, the administration and the legal staff are all with us, so just so everybody knows, we're doing a teleconference tomorrow with mayors and supervisors. If you haven't seen the email yet, with the call-in number and just for a briefing. So you're welcome to capacity, all withstanding. You're welcome to call in on that and participate. It'll be a very tight structure. It'll be an update to those folks in the community. So, go ahead, Mr. Ferris. Yeah, probably be right here. What?
Would the briefing be in this chamber, so if we actually wanted to, we could come and hang out here instead of being on the phone? Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be the same format.
Okay.
No. Yep. Yep. Sure. Mr. Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Being that you've been doing a very good job of keeping us up to date as much as possible as things have been evolving and changing. I think it would be remiss if we didn't have Ginger give us an update as far as what we know up to this point while we're all gathered together.
Ginger?
That's why she's here. So,
Okay, so in the United States right now, we have 7,038 cases. There have been 97 deaths. In New York State, we are at 2,382 cases. 32 counties plus New York City has been impacted by the COVID-19. In New York State, we're running around a 23% hospitalization rate. 549 have been hospitalized in New York, with 108 of them now discharged. New York City, Westchester, Nassau, Suffolk, and Albany. That's the order for the number of confirmed cases for the top 5. Right now, there's been 14,597 individuals tested in New York State. Our first case in Jefferson was March 17th. It's respiratory droplets, so if someone sneezes or coughs, an individual can then contract to COVID-19, and it also is on the surfaces. So we are still encouraging precautions for respiratory precautions and cleansing of your environment to prevent getting the COVID-19. Its incubation period's 2 to 14 days. We are finding that people are the most contagious when they start exhibiting any of those respiratory symptoms. On average, each infected person spreads the infection to 2 additional persons. So they have revised our criteria for now screening and testing for COVID. In one area is that a patient has symptoms consistent with COVID-19 but has not tested positive for flu or another respiratory test. It allows the COVID-19 as one of the criteria now. It allows us to test. So that's why you're seeing more testing. And they have changed the way it's tested. When I think I first presented, it was a nasopharyngeal, oropharyngeal, and a sputum collection. Now they can do a nasopharyngeal swab, so it's through the nose to the back of the throat. That swab can be used to do a respiratory panel, and if that is negative, that swab then can be used for the COVID-19. So it's reserving some of our limited resources. Right now, we're having 3 to 5 days for the results to return. So anyone tested in Jefferson County that we know about at Jefferson County Public Health, because of the criteria, we now do not know everyone being tested. So providers can test and have it sent to the lab. When we know about that person being tested, we have to do precautionary quarantine. So that means we contact them, do a symptom review, how they're feeling, what their fever is, and then we do that daily until that, hopefully, negative test returns. Then we can stop that daily monitoring. So there's times we've had over 100 and some being monitored. So that workload for us has increased now that we've increased the testing. We now have to do all those daily phone calls. We got 20-some new test results last night. The night before was 22. So you can see the number is starting to increase. So that type of work is really increasing, where we have the phone call, getting the contact information, following up with that individual. The state does have a texting app where we can enter the individual's names once they prove that we can do that, and then they will receive a text from the state asking them if they have symptoms and what their fever is. And if anyone has a change in status, we have a dashboard on our state system that we're able to go in and look at to see what's going on, and then make an additional phone call to see how that person is doing. So that is really increased. So focus is still the aggressive containment strategies, encouraging people for social distancing. What we want to do is flatten the curve, and we've talked about it being a nice bell curve. But when you have that bell curve, that's quite a spike, and it really impacts our healthcare system. So that if we can, and you keep hearing the term, flatten that curve, transition slowly, we're going to have a slower number of individuals impacting the healthcare system, so the impact will not be so severe by keeping it flat, other than that increased surge. So there's different strategies the governor has implemented, that should help with that transition. We do screening at our office so that if individuals are having any symptoms, we are not having them work, so that they're not out in the field seeing patients or with our own employees. So that we started doing that this week, so that's a little bit of a difference. The workload is definitely increasing, and I expect it to continue to increase as we continue to do more and more testing.
Mr. Pierce?
I was reading the email that you sent out to us that said that we were over 4,000 cases and there are 1,169 more cases just from yesterday that came out in the governor's email that you sent, being us over 4,000, not 2,000. I didn't know Ginger's numbers were different because she had older information.
I think she was quoting yesterday's numbers. 4,000
Yes.
is today's number. That's
Yep.
yesterday's.
This
She's
is
quoting
yesterday's. My 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, these are the numbers they had.
Right. The number's 4,000 now, which is, and that's a good point, because
Yes.
you can see the rapid change in the numbers,
Yeah.
and that is, first of all, we're largely, I mean, other than taking care of the residents, which is our primary concern, we are executing the state strategy. We're part of the overall picture that's executing the state's strategy. So, and if you've listened to the governor speak, or you've been on one of the many phone calls that we're on every day, the governor refers to it as dialing the knob, right? And so they calibrate it every day. They calibrate it based on the tests that are out, being done, tests that are coming back, and you can see, of course, the more you test, and that's the whole point, the more you test, the more you can find out the extent of its existence and isolate the people, which is going to contain, it's part of the containment effort. So that's when the governor talks about dialing that knob, and that's why you see this continual density reduction effort, because the tests that are being, it's all data driven. The tests that are going out, the cases that are coming back, and it's not, and it's all measured against the time frame, population and time frame that we're at, and the ability of the medical, the healthcare system to handle the onslaught. So putting all of that together in the grinder that they do every probably few hours, that's when they make the adjustments and they dial it back, and they said we have to have people further apart, more isolated, and we got to slow, you've heard flatten the curve, slow the spread, because it's not a matter of stopping it, it's a matter of slowing it so our healthcare system can keep pace with what's going to come our way. The peak time that's projected is out 45 days right now before we will peak. Pardon? For New York. That is the projection. Now, everything, I would like to say everything changes. It would be ideal if I said everything changes daily. Hourly. It's literally, it's hourly. And she's on a whole different set of calls that we're on, and it's just the enormity of the information that's flowing is unreal right now. So that's why, so if you everything, considering everything, it's considered drastic measures right now in order to do the best they can to minimize the disruption. The disruption was going to come at some point. It's dialing it up right now to slow it down. There's, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but the latest projection that I heard was somewhere 40, and it's the governor's data, 40, 50, 60% of the population could get infected with the virus. She'll tell me if I'm wrong on that. Yep. And so, and you can do that calculation real easy when you start looking at the population of, a county or the state, and then balance it against the ability of the healthcare to deliver service these folks. 80% of these people, and that's why everybody's got to relax here, okay? Because 80% of those getting affected will just be like a normal flu. They'll, as the governor said, have a little chicken soup and stay home and relax and come out of it in a couple of weeks. And, but it's the 20% of the population that we're concerned about. And that's who we go to work every day to protect. So, because they're the ones, and it's not necessarily, it is anybody that has is compromised through an illness of any sort that is susceptible to this being amplified, and senior citizens who are weaker in general. So, did I say anything incorrect?
You did not.
You're doing good. So, that's our mission every day, is executing the governor's executing the state strategy, letting the healthcare people do the job that they're supposed to be doing. I mean, everything. We're dealing with child care to try to get healthcare workers, to try to get the frontline people working and keeping them working, try to keep the social distancing and the separation of people, because the other fear is healthcare and public safety workers are going to start to get ill from this, and it's going to deplete the ability to serve people that are sick. So there's a reserve of not only people being generated right now by the state, and we're talking about educational institutions that have medical programs, retired people, bringing them back in. There is an inventory of space being done that we're participating in. We just got notified just like minutes ago. Inventory of space for capacity, for excess capacity for medical space that we're going to work on first thing in the morning. And but all of that is to try to, if we keep people relaxed at home, going for a walk with their dog or something, and we let the medical people and the public safety people do their job and stay out of their way, hopefully we'll be through this before it gets too bad. So, and the people who are excited about the decisions, which is understandable. These decisions are daunting, I'll tell you that, because you have livelihoods against illnesses that could kill people. So there's no easy answer or decision here. And we understand people are excited. So it's just a matter of relaxing so we can let these people get their job done. And let's get out of this as quickly as we can. Ginger?
You're right.
Yeah, I have my Google Public Health degree right now. So, Yep.
Go, Mike.
Thank you, Legislator Reed, and thank you, Chairman. My comment is simply this: I'd like to thank the staff that is working and that is maintaining the social distancing that has been requested by Public Health. And I'd like to thank the people who just chose to stay away from the meeting tonight, I among them, not because of our likelihood to be infected, but because of our realization that what we do today affects what happens to all of us tomorrow. We're all in this together. A spread of a virus isn't just a matter of a joke that I can go, it won't matter what I do. It does matter. It reminds me of my years as a teacher, trying to herd a group of people to go the same direction and get them all to agree. It's difficult. I'd like to appreciate the things that people have done. 1, your social distancing. 2, the folks who stayed home. And 3, the efforts of our employees who are working through this. What you do today will affect what happens to all of us tomorrow. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Ferris?
The order today to go to 25% staff, and then finding out 45 days to 60 days before it peaks. So is there a projection of how long that's going to last?
You mean projection of how long, what's going to last?
The order to be at 25%,
There's no
or is it going to
projection
go
to
to
the end.
100% closure?
There's no projection.
No.
100% closures, that's speculation. I'm not gonna, and there's no projection that it's the end. There's no end date here.
I do
Correct.
think from a kind of overall standpoint, though, the way the governor and the state are looking at it is kind of in 2-week increments. Schools are closed everywhere in the state now. For a while, that wasn't the case, and it's in 2-week increments. Even though, like in our case, Jefferson County, St. Lawrence County, Lewis County, it's gone through, I believe, April 18th. But ultimately, it's going to be, and it may be there, but it's in 2-week increments. So we kind of stay focused on the present and deal with day after day after day and not get lost down the road, because it could get much worse and that becomes overwhelming today, or it could get better and it's still overwhelming today. So we're kind of taking it a day at a time, even though the more information on trending that becomes available from the virus, that will help all of us in counteracting that. But we don't have that data yet either, so it literally is one day at a time.
Anybody else? Chris Peck?
What's happening with our elderly care services that we used to have? Like what's changed with Office of the Aging and trying to handle elderly care and things of those natures?
That's a great question, which is a super lead in to just one observation I want to make. Again, among the edicts for the social distancing for the public sector is to downsize to approximately 50% of the workforce. We have done so. There is a definition of sorts for what is considered essential service, which is very true. I mean, it's public safety, it's public health, it's the jail, the corrections operation, those sort of things. And then from that, we started to subtract. And I assure you we've gotten there and we're still open. But to the question you're raising, Mr. Peck, you're on point, because what wasn't really identified was Office of Aging. What hasn't been identified is our solid waste and transfer station. That's public health. We are keeping that at full tilt, because one thing we realize today is with as many people home, everybody's doing their spring cleaning, and we have been overwhelmed out at that facility. And not bad, all good, but there are the consequences that start to serve. Office of Aging, we've cut back on staffing as required, but as it relates to getting the meals out to all of our customers, that is continuing. Variations on the theme might happen. As an example, we may not deliver every day. We might have 5 days supply and deliver on a Monday kind of a thing. But we're networking with Urban Mission, we're networking with Salvation Army, we're networking with CAPC to make sure nobody gets lost in that shuffle. When we went away from the congregate services to individualized, and now at some of the high rises, it could be anywhere, but high rises in the city, we've been making deliveries. It's been very much appreciated. But then there's the knock on the door from the neighbor saying, how do I sign up? Or how do I sign up even if they're not quite eligible? Say they're 58 or something like that, and 60 is the threshold number. So what we're doing now is networking again with CAPC and everybody else to put that person on the list and address it in maybe one of several ways. As it stands today, we don't have the capacity to add customers, but we're not going to forget those folks. So there's a lot of attention being paid that way. The Transportation Center, we recently had a presentation, they're getting engaged in this thing too and helping delivering the meals. So it's quite an effort that's come forth. Another front, there's a lot of activity when when the schools shut down, and as quickly as they did, there was very much child care crisis that surfaced. So Scott convened a meeting on Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday, I'm losing track of time, with a variety of local organizations to see if we could take that up a notch. And it does appear that's now going to happen in a variety of ways, getting pretty creative. There might be some activities back in the schools that are closed. And I should say schools closed That means students aren't there anymore. The schools provide a variety of services, so the other programs that are taking place are continuing, maybe in a varying way from one school district to another, or not the way it used to be before schools were let out, but the meals to the students are taking place. There are mental health programs that are in place. That connection is being made. So schools closed technically as it relates to students there, but they're open in terms of providing other services. So again, from that meeting, a lot of networking took place, and it looks like we're going to take it up a notch and have some of these places that have closed fairly soon open again. Whether they open where they are now or whether they're assisted in other agencies, it's a work in progress. But if we can't take care of that need, that, like any one of us or any employee, if your child is home and you don't have any way to have the necessary supervision, you're going home. When you start talking about in terms of public health nurses or SMC or Carthage or whatever, for doctors, for nurses, for healthcare workers, we got to make sure that really becomes a priority. We got to make sure that their children are taken care of. So that's not really directly a county responsibility, but we're networking with all those folks and maybe facilitating to some extent and making sure that those things happen. There's also a lot of interaction going on between Albany and here. Scott, again, is kind of a key point to help get this person in contact with that person if there's a situation arising. But it's also a way for the state to get a pulse of what's going on in Jefferson County, and that's key. Scott just referenced this request that came through not even an hour ago for getting a sense of buildings that might be able to house a variety of programs, more likely on the medical side than anything else, but they're looking for space. You may have seen in the media the ice arena by Friday will be without ice, so that now does open up an opportunity for some type of usage. So we are reporting that to the state. And again, we think of some of the hotels that have not big convention rooms, but conference center rooms. Maybe that's something that can be used. So again, every day it's just something different in addition to what's already in place. The other thing I would comment on, there's been a tremendous amount of networking by way of conference calls that has been extremely helpful. In one particular case, in another half hour, NISAC will be having a conference. It's been held every day this week, now in the evening. So Scott's comment about calming down, you kind of take in what has happened from the governor's announcements of a particular day, what that means and how that translates to now, how do we now put the pieces together. But it's board chairs, it's county administrators, it's county execs, it's people who then can go back into their organization and lend a hand, and so that's working very well. But the state is doing their own regional conference calls at 4 in the afternoon, and other affiliates are doing conference calls, so everybody's networking. What's unique about this thing versus the ice storm that I think we need to be very cognizant of is when the ice storm, it was terrible. I mean, it was a difficult thing, but it was happening here. We could call on resources from Onondaga, from New York City, from Buffalo. It didn't really matter. We didn't go that far, but those folks weren't in the situation. As of today, everybody is in the situation, so there's no real resources to call upon because everybody's got the same battle. That's a little bit scarier, but as, again, Scott has said, the idea is to calm everything down and deal with it on a day-to-day basis, and it will get better. The sun's going to come up. It may be midsummer before we're back to somewhat of a normal, but it will get better, and then hopefully the economy bounces back shortly after that.
Yeah, we have to deal with that. Let me just briefly tell you, like one of the issues, like personal protective equipment. I mean, just the magnitude of what's got to be used out there, transit systems, police, anybody that's out in the field, public health, anybody that's out in the field having contact with people, has to wear this stuff now. And, so just the sheer magnitude of items and stuff like that we need. But we're not alone needing it. It's all around the state that needs it. So getting it is difficult. So Yes. Phil?
I just had a quick question. This new requirement about the 25% staffing level, I'm assuming this is our recommended guideline. This is not something that's going to hold our feet to the fire on?
That was mentioned this morning by the governor, but there's, I think, a lack of clarity at the moment. That's more of a guideline
It's mandatory.
for private.
Yep, it's mandatory, and go ahead, Jimmy.
It's criminal to go over the 25% according to our lawyers from what they researched they did.
So it's mandatory. Yep.
This is mandatory for private business as well?
It is private business.
It is
right
for
now.
private business at this point.
We're
Yeah.
yet to be. Okay, so we're yet to be there yet. We have a plan, we think, for 25%, but we're
As of today, yes, we're
we're yet to get there, and we have a 50% plan. They've had all kinds of plans that they're working on, and so today it's really, I think we've got some clarification, net of essentials, so, and 25% is not enacted yet for us, so we have some time to get prepared. But we have to have people. We have to have people running this operation, because if nothing else is running in the I don't want to say world, but if anything in our world right now, if nothing else is running, government has to run. We have to take care of people, and that's what we're doing. So we're we have a plan, but we don't have to be at 25% yet. But private sector does. Yes.
You good, Dan?
Okay, I guess, well, can we split our shifts? So what we plan to do is run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and split 3 ways. And our intent was we keep everybody separated, and if somebody got sick, that we would cancel that shift for 2 weeks. Is this considered legal in the governor's eyes? Because to go to 25% workforce, we can't do some operations that will close. It will force us to close.
So, Dan, I would direct you to ESD, Empire State Development.
Okay.
For clarification. And they can, and depending upon the situation, they can issue waivers also. But you have to.
All right.
It's not going to be easy. I'm going to tell you that. They're just not going to hand out waivers. So. Yep. You got to think differently. Yep. Exactly.
You good, Dan?
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Peck.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that transfer station will continue to operate and garbage collection. I'm sure that's probably going to be one of the things on town supervisor's list tomorrow. Other question, tax collection. I think some towns have started to close their offices, but anybody who didn't already pay their tax bills, they're supposed to pay at the local town office now, or pay via mail. I presume tax collections functions should still continue to happen. Property tax collections.
So
in some fashion, yes.
You need to look to the left of the tax enforcer. Don't look this way for that.
I mean, there's proposals that are out there to extend dates. How quickly some of those, in a variety of ways, how quickly those come to pass, we just don't know. But that is one of the issues that definitely has arisen. Again, many of these decisions we don't have the authority to make. They're being made or directed out of Albany because we're all under an executive order. So as much as we'd like to on occasion step in, we right now can't do that without authority from the governor.
And as a matter of fact, this is right around the time the executive order comes out. It's due out usually between 6 and 7, so we're expecting today's. So it's a very strange process. So, there's press conferences, and then we sort through the information, and then we actually get the executive order, and then we decide. Then the next day we continue on and decide how to execute the executive order. So that's what Bob is referring to. It's a step-by-step process.
I would make an observation, just a personal observation. The one thing I've noticed in the last 2 weeks, which has been somewhat reassuring, quite frankly, is essentially ideas coming out of Albany. Implementation is a whole other issue, and that's my bag, trying to make it work. But in terms of what's being attempted, different initiatives one way or another, essentially it's New York State doing it first, implementing it first, and 4 or 5 days later you might see something similar being proposed out of the federal government, which doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just we seem to be on the cutting edge of just about everything that's moving forward, which is a positive. If we talk about the bell curve as one small example, Governor Cuomo, more than a week ago, was talking about it, and now if you look at the local media or the national media, everybody's addressing it. That's a good thing, but a week ago, there was only one person talking about it, and that was the governor in his press conferences. So he's got a good handle on the pulse, and if we can just keep up with him and implement, that's what our attention is.
And a lot of the initiatives that are not, nobody's taking credit for some of these decisions, but, a lot of the things that we're discussing, some of the intricate details we're discussing with the state on our calls, and then they get implemented a few days later. And I think, John, you were one that you asked me a couple of questions, probably a week ago, and then elections was one. I'll give you that example. And so when we hear issues like that from you folks, we take those issues back to the state people, and we have discussions on them, day in and day out. And it takes that long. It takes days to process those decisions, just like this resolution did. It took days to process, because there's a lot of legal people crawling around our every decision. So,
the one thing you haven't asked about, and there are no answers, but I'll bring us back to square one, or bring us back to earth. We do not know how the budget for this year is going to shake out, the state budget. But I can assure you there's going to be some major impact in terms of less revenues to continue to do the same programs. I'm not sure where that's going one way or the other. And again, I'm not trying to suggest doom and gloom. It is an unknown, but the kind of deficit that the state is projecting now versus what they were just 2 weeks ago is dramatically different. And at the best, it falls somewhere in the middle. But regardless, a budget's going to have to be approved sooner or later. And it's going to be tough on all levels of local government. So we've got some work ahead of us, but for the moment, the first priority is public health, the health of our residents, and that's what we're staying focused on.
And that was one of the things that was covered last night. NITEC is doing several economic studies, but we're just heading into it right now, so the economics of this thing is not going to be known for a while. You may be able to project it a little bit, but the economics is not going to be known for a while. So, but they're working on it. Tourism is one. They're working on a tourism economic impact, and they're doing some projections on. They're doing sales tax projections. They're doing all kinds of projections, but just nobody's got time to really sit down and look at that stuff. That's kind of like if you had time, you would look at it right now and try to study it. But we can't do anything about it right now, so it's just you triage the information, and that's good that it's out there. But in time, we'll look at it. I just want to point out the administration, because they've been working hard to try to implement these plans, and it hasn't been easy for them. So, they have been, every time they turn around, they have a plan for whatever's coming down, and a lot of times you see it tossed aside and there's on to the next plan, and department heads are responding and coming in here, and your department heads are being put through the ringers right now, we will tell you that. And to that extent, I would ask you the consideration on their behalf. If you absolutely have to contact them, feel free to. That's your right and your job to do so. But just be considerate of what they're going through right now. They are trying to figure out what services that they can continue to provide to the public. They're trying to figure out how to provide those services with what staff they have. They're trying to figure out what staff they're going to have. And pretty much they're still trying to do their job, which is getting all lost in this thing. So these people, I can tell you, I've been here every day. I watch them, and they're just being pulled left and right all the time. So, but under Bob and Sarah's leadership, and they're doing a good job getting stuff turned around. Really good job. So, if you have any questions that you need answered, I'm here all the time. Bob and Sarah are always available to you by any means. I've tried to communicate everything to you, so just you can just dial it back from them and let them figure everything out. And chances are they, as part of the 50% rule, might not even be here from time to time. So it's a revolving door. It's easy to find a parking place out there, and I don't have to worry about white lines. So, anything else? Yep, Mr. Doldo? Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
Doldo.
just one thought. I mean, hearing a lot of people that have been coming into the store, I think people need to just realize that their county government is working and our doors are open. Also that, the nurses are working hard amongst doing the best that they can do. Doctors are working a lot of hours, and our staff, even though they're not in the building, they're actually doing things at home. And I think that's important that people realize that, we've got this. We've been through the ice storm. This is a totally different bird from the ice storm. But it's important that people know, and I want to reiterate that people are panicking with hand sanitizer amongst other things, but I'm sure Ginger will tell you that basic hand washing goes a long ways. I think it's very important, but you also have a lot of stores out there, and their staff is working hard to do what they can do. There is food and stuff in the supply chain. If people would just calm down and relax, it could get caught up a lot quicker. It is a struggle every day for stores. We don't know where we're getting stuff, if we're getting stuff, trying to meet the needs of people in the area, but nobody's going to starve here. So again, coming from my business and other stores around with empty shelves, we just ask the public to please relax. We're getting it. Things are in the chain. They're working hard. People are working extra hours. They're getting tired. People are panicking, figuring they're going to run out of food, and it's not going to happen. It's just, please relax. Thank you.
Tired. Yeah, people on the state call this afternoon were really punchy. Really punchy.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we're going to tell you this is the information. We're not taking any questions today.
Well,
so that's all.
Well, and I
on point today.
I think a lot of it too is the social media. Some of the big news channels, they beat it to death, and they've got people that are sitting at home that are just watching this constantly, and it's putting them into a hysteria.
Yeah.
And I really think that, the news media, the people on the social media need to stop, because there really should be only, an update once a day, because people are they're just sitting in their chair and just really thinking this through, and there's all kinds of rumors out there about things running out. It's not true, right? So,
and to that end, I will tell you, we try to sift everything out, and we can only deal in facts. Okay, what we know. We can't speculate. We can't respond to social media, whether the accuracy of social media. All we can deal in is facts. The state has boiled everything down. Don't come to us with, we heard this. They don't want to hear it. just facts. So, Mr. Ferris.
The other day, you sent out a press release from the governor about a $5 billion package. Whether Jefferson County was going to get $3.24 million.
I don't remember.
Are you talking about the federal stimulus? That's what you're referring to, yes. We haven't seen any details of it. It just got passed. Yeah, just over 3.2 million or something like that. But exactly how it is to be applied, we need clarity on that. And it's not going to be here tomorrow, but it is good news. From that standpoint, it is good news.
I don't even remember sending it out. What was it about? And we're in communication with all government levels. I mean, the senator is in touch every day. We had the congresswoman.
I was just going to say, yeah, we had a staff meeting on Monday,
She
emergency
addressed
meeting.
all the department
Congresswoman.
heads. She called in for the department heads, and we have been in touch with Schumer's office as well. So, and of course, the governor's office. We get them every day. So, any other questions, Mr. Peck?
Thank you. I think, this situation has been very much, let's say, a breath of fresh air to see how well the state can work with us, so to speak, and how well they can listen to us when suggestions are given back up. So, I think certainly some relationship building going on with this situation that I would hope would continue after things calm down, possibly. Maybe there's a realization that local government has a better use rather than just robbing our piggy banks, for their purposes. But, certainly...
No comment.
Certainly, very appreciative of the work that staff and administration and you have been doing, Scott. So I think just continuing the flow of information as it has been vetted and passed along will be certainly helpful.
Yep. Pleasure.
Well, candidly, the more you all know, because your neighbors are asking questions, your families are asking questions, you become the liaison or the local ambassador. So our intent is to try to keep, it doesn't happen exactly at that point sometimes because there's a lot going on, but our clear intent, like the press release last night, we get it to you in advance so you can see it and absorb it. If there's a declaration, get it to you in advance so you can see it and understand it. Because, again, you're getting asked questions because you're legislators and they just assume you know everything. So the more we can get to you, the better. But if you've got questions, get in touch.
Which will remind me, a daily question that we get is cases being tested, and Ginger has referenced that in her presentation. We don't have the ability to test is getting very widely distributed to organizations. I mean, you got drive-in testing now. So we have, it was early on, it was very simple. A couple places did it. Public Health had to approve the test, and it was all tightly controlled. But quickly was discovered that that was not going to help mitigate the situation. So this broadening of the ability to test is out there. So the test bypass us and go straight to a lab. They are entered into a state system that Ginger referenced, and so they could be reported, they could potentially be reported at some level before we are aware of them. So just keep that in mind, and it's monitoring it every day. Yes.
I was told that the hospital started testing today with the drive-through.
There is a drive-through testing. That is correct. Town of Watertown.
That's right.
Yes, Mr. Peck.
So given the case that was on Fort Drum, obviously that person wasn't resident here, but what's the relationship with our public health and personnel on Fort Drum in that installation? Is that being dealt with by federal government, or do we have any working jurisdiction going on there?
Yeah, and she can address that. We have excellent relationships with Fort Drum. Go ahead, Ginger. We are public health So Ginger operates in one area, and she's working with people on public health. We are in conversation with Garrison daily also, and so we have excellent communications there. And they're dialed up for the child care issue. They're dialed up for the capacity, the space issue. They're dialed up on every front. Go ahead, Ginger.
So the one that tested positive then that was, you know, a part-time employee there, are there individuals quarantined in relation to that individual? Are there individuals on quarantine that were in proximity to that individual that was working on Fort Drum that tested positive?
No. You're talking about the soldiers that returned?
No, the one that's from Warren County? Or,
from another county.
Yeah. Anybody that was in proximity with him that he was working with on post? Is anybody on post in quarantine that was in contact with him? So it's kind of hard to explain, but when there's a positive case, we work backwards to find out when they first had symptoms. And that's when they are the most contagious. So very fortunate with this individual, they keep appointments and it's in a system so we could see what type of interaction when the appointments were and if those appointments were in proximate closeness within 6 feet. So we have reached out to individuals to see what their contact was, how close they were with the individual, and whether they were at risk. So it was very limited contact.
Go ahead.
Mr. Gray, Mr. Hagman, do you have a 7 o'clock meeting that you have to attend? I'm thinking it's
I'm watching the clock.
I'm thinking it's time to give you guys some time.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm watching the clock.
I would make just one other observation. We spent about 3 minutes dealing with the particular resolution at hand, and it's been 50 minutes of discussion. So, Jill, your reference to the minutes, discussion was held, and that's it. Thank you.
So, anything else coming before the... Anybody on the phone? Anybody? Nope. Okay. Motion to adjourn? Oh, hold on. Yeah, Yeah.
We did a roll call.
Yeah. Motion to adjourn? Mr. Drake, second Mr. Cantwell. All in favor?